I want to do a little, so this is our session, and oh my, let me tell you how terrible I am. See, this is an example of what happens when you forget your routine sometimes. So let me see where we're supposed to be. Let me float this over here. Give me 1 second, guys. I apologize. Where are we on sessions? Is this the 7th? Yeah, I know I could get... Alright, so let me, first thing, I don't have a slide. I usually do, but I'm not going to take the time to do the graphics work. So let me do this here, because I don't want to lose track. Angela. Session 07. And I got a couple things I'm going to talk about today. One, getting your SIG on. 2, just some tidbits on trades that I've noticed. Tidbits. And INS. So before I get into the meat of what I actually wanted to cover, let me be a little reactive or responsive. How's everybody doing? I mean, are we still excited about where trading's taking us? Are we getting discouraged? Where are we? Be honest. Let me understand. Be honest. Okay, we'll talk about SIG, Tiffany, SIG. Yeah, overwhelming is true. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you. I haven't had much comments on Goalmaker, but I appreciate that. Yeah, don't worry about, there's no measure of speed. How many of you, of course, you know, I got, if we were to take the average age of the group is what I saw in the bios, I got a few years on you. But does anybody remember the original Stargate movie with the whole thanks, Zoe. The original Stargate movie with the Stargate that was, they found in Egypt or wherever, and took them forever to figure out how to make it work, and then, well, that's the best analogy for those of you who've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to see it. It's kind of an interesting movie. And it has that mix of, ancient Egypt and sci-fi all in one. Your progress as a trader, we keep rolling stuff out. The sense of falling behind is just really a way of saying, the stuff is coming at such a pace. I haven't mastered what we went over last week, and here we are, something new. And that's a pretty common thing, especially with the way I move forward. But you will, at some point, go through a Stargate. And that blur plane that exists in the center of that Stargate circle, the Stargate itself, when you go through the gate, you will have a sensation of doing that with your trading. You'll actually feel that. Now, it might not be as instantaneous as it was in the movie, but it'll be within a period of a couple days or maybe even a week when essentially all these seemingly separate things come together. And you will have that sensation that you pass through a Stargate. And it's a mental awakening to what trading really is. So it's pretty cool. So don't worry about the feelings you're having now. You can't look for that Stargate, so don't try and do that. It's not like you can dig it up in your backyard like they did the Stargate. But you'll know it when you go through it. So don't worry. You just keep plugging away. There's a little method to my madness. You know, I got a little antsy with somebody last night. If you were in the IML session last night, I got a little antsy with somebody. You know, a little, I'll say impatient maybe. For the stuff that I teach, I just didn't whip it out. You know, because it was a rainy day yesterday and I had nothing else to do in the basement, and I thought of something. And I don't, again, I please understand, I'm not trying to convey this with a sense of arrogance or ego or anything. But Zoe and Richard and Annette will tell you, who've been around a while. I'm looking at anybody else that's in here from old school with me. To essentially not accept what we're doing and instantly try and do it differently, without doing what we do. The best way I could think of it. Like it was just a brand new concept that was conjured up yesterday. Most of the stuff that we teach, that I teach to us, I use the we, is tried and true and already been through, go left, go right, go up, go down, see where the boundaries are, and then apply that over thousands of moves and get a sense of what's going, sometimes statistically studied, especially stuff when it gets down to numerical stuff. And so it's a mindset that challenges me, because it just says, for whatever reason, this person's ego, and that's what it is. It's just ego. It's one of those mavericks that has to have their little twist on it. And most of the time it's out of the blue. And that's the challenge with it. I'll tell you why it upsets me. It's because that is the very same person then that will do something differently because they want to, and then not succeed with it, and then say the system doesn't work. And it's not so much an ego or an emotional attachment to what I teach. It's just, there is a reality of duplication. There is a reality of, when you drive it all the way down, there is some level of commercial interest vested. And so when somebody does their take on it, and it's a little bit like, I don't know, find an example, ABC or BBC News. I'll use BBC. I'll honor the UK people. BBC News is on my cable channel 117, and so I just randomly put the TV on channel 350 and say, well, BBC News doesn't work. And then people who don't know about TVs, they go and, somebody sees a print ad for BBC News. Oh, that's just, that just doesn't work, man. Don't waste your time. All right, so I got a question or two here. Yeah, we've come a long way, haven't we? Yep, there you go, David. I've used that before. Like a high school quarterback trying to tell Tom Brady how to play football. Tom Brady is a quarterback for the New England Patriots, a football team that is quite. I'm not a huge fan of them. I'm a huge fan of what they've accomplished. They're pretty spectacular. Well, Richard, that's really answered with tab 29 and pieces of 10. So I don't want to get into that in this group. So there, there will be clarity. We're getting around the fringes of stuff, and I want to secure our knowledge here at a general level, 75, 80% level. So again, there's room for not feeling 100% comfortable with all that we're doing yet, because it is coming fast and furious. And right now I'm in teaching mode. I'm not letting you apply some of this stuff just yet, and that's okay. Meaning, I talked about the 62, but you don't have shadow bands yet. I showed shadow bands in a previous session. So that all the stuff to play with is coming. I'll make that your Christmas present. How's that? All the stuff is coming, but I'm trying to tie some pieces together so then when it does come, you can at least with some level of intelligence play with it. And yeah, or actually, I'm supposed to say, what is it here? Ladies of the night, ladies of the night, ladies of the night. Since it's the holiday season, I could say that. See, that's because with politics, we're not allowed to say ho, ho, ho. we Political correctness won't let us say that, so we have to. Sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's just. Actually, I saw that was who was that comedian? Larry the Cable Guy did that one night on a skit. He was reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" to the little kids, and he's sitting in there, ladies of the night, ladies of the night, ladies, and they were actually using like 4 and 5-year-olds gathered in a circle around him. I was cracking up about these poor kids. Anyway, so yeah, so there's a method to my madness and what I'm giving you, how I give it to you, and look, it's also a little discipline teaching. It's like I want you to work through the impatience. Gosh dang it, Steve, give me that stuff. It's like, well, hold on, it's coming, it's coming. You'll have it before you walk through that Stargate. Trust me. All right. So I wanted to get a little bit of a test there where you guys are head game wise. So we're going to be challenged over the next 2 to 3 weeks. The holidays are coming, those that celebrate them, the particular winter holidays, and, end of year rituals and all that kind of stuff, family. I mean, from my perspective, the way I think of you guys is family, and family always comes first. Always, always, always. Don't let that run into an excuse. Don't learn where those boundaries are. Just because you have some family routines, let's say with the little ones, doesn't mean that's the threshold of family's always first. Family's always first means, if your kid has a 102 fever, I want you by their bedside, with a wet cold cloth on their forehead. I don't want you watching a video or attending a session. Family first. But that doesn't mean, that you can't arrange your schedule sometimes on some other things that can be moved around. You can't move around your kid's 102-degree fever. You might be able to move around, the specific hour you make some Christmas cookies. So you got to use a little common sense in the family first. But family's first, always. And there's no, there's just some things that when there's a conflict, the family is the first, is always the solution. So we have, we're going to have some things come up over the next couple of weeks that take us away from our routine, and that's okay. You need to allocate them. I used to, in the goal maker and in the goal making genre and sense, I used to talk about, I see traders who will do things like get a brand new system. This is good for the system jumpers. Get a brand new system, and literally before they've even learned the system, they've already put an Excel spreadsheet together, and they've run it out, for 5 days a week for 52 weeks. And the first thing is, well, don't you take any vacation? What about holidays? I got you don't have Saturday and Sunday in there, but, well, some people do 365, even forgetting that the market's not open 365 days. What about, especially for Americans, what about Thanksgiving? Don't tell me you're not going to have, a couple of 3 days at least that week, if not all 5. What about just normal visits and health and, Murphy's Law kind of stuff that comes up? What about Christmas? What about spring break for the kids? Are you really 100%, or fall break or whatever it is where you are geographically around the globe? Summer vacation, winter vacation. You don't put in 52 weeks a year. And so that's just a lack of understanding about what's going on. And so typically when I do projections out, I take a week out of November and I take a week out of 2 weeks out of December. I take, January is a little smaller than normal or shorter than normal. And then I usually put at least another 2 weeks in there, spread out throughout the year that are off time. So when you get down to it, you really have about 10 months out of the year. You can't do projections and forecasts with 12 full months. It doesn't work that way. And so you have to be careful with that. All right. So under Tid-Bits, this is a little bit head game stuff. I see a variety of posts, and again, I know a lot of it is from traders who are not from the IML family, who are not in this group, but I have seen a little of it in this group, so I have to bring it up. And this is part of your head game, the triad of ego, SIG, law of attraction. And I think, and again, excuse my, I saw some stand-up with Sinbad. He was talking about his lack of artistic ability as he was trying to explain something visually. That's a pretty significant triad. You want to get a comprehension of that as much as you can, how those things are all tied together. So, Richard, there was a big document over the weekend. You're probably curled up with a bottle of NyQuil or something. SIG is the replacement for RAS. It's Sensory Information Gateway. And there's a whole editorial document on it. It says, or the title of the post, I think, is something like RAS is dead. So go search that and read it through, and you'll understand why we call it SIG instead. RAS is dead. Exactly, Tiffany. So your sensory information gateways, your law of attraction and your ego are all tied together, and you can't separate them. Oh, it's okay. I mean, that's, again, when we're sick, we're not 100%, and for me, I could have read through it and don't even remember that I read it when I get sick. So I get it. You have to remember that there is a spiral associated, not just the general law of spirals. And notice there's a plural on it. It doesn't say the law of spiral. It says the law of spirals, because the bigger spiral has smaller spirals around it. Little bit sometimes, like you see those massive storm cells, superstorms, in the Midwest in the U.S., and you see one big tornado, and there's like 7 or 8 smaller ones dancing around it. Totally crazy. And that's a little bit like the law of spirals. There's a lot of small spirals around it. So if you haven't already figured out, your results and your programming, regardless of whether that's your direct programming or whether it's indirect programming of your subconscious mind would be things like history from how your parents raised you, history from how you interacted or felt, your teachers influenced you. Impact could be your current environment. Negative impact could be things like news, newspapers, negative people. Okay, those are all programming. And what happens then is you kind of become addicted to that stuff. It really has no relevance in your life. I mean, I understand I understand it's cool to be somewhat versed in international affairs, current affairs, just as a human being, as a person on the planet. But, I've also seen so many local news shows over the years that when it's over with, I look back and I go, what? That was the biggest waste of 30 minutes. And of course, most of those local news always open up with very negative stuff. So-and-so was shot, so-and-so was assaulted, so-and-so was molested, such and such a store was robbed, and they spent their whole life trying to build the store, blah, blah, blah. And so, it's just like, oh my gosh, such negative stuff. That's all programming your subconscious mind. Now, you have to realize, you now know there's a filter on that. There's this thing called, sensory information gateways that pull from nothing but what's in your mind. And so if you have negative stuff on a routine basis entering your mind, whether you consciously are aware of it or not, it builds that gateway, and it prevents good stuff from coming to you, and it just facilitates more bad stuff coming to you, because your crew, remember, best crew in the whole world, your crew wants to please you. And if you allow stuff to be fed to your subconscious mind that's negative, your crew sits there and thinks, oh, this guy likes negative. Let's bring him more of it. That's how the filters work. And so you get into that negative spiral, and it just continues. Well, when you actually experience that negativeness, it sours your perception on life. And you become a self-inflicting negative law of attraction magnet. Does that make sense? Have you ever noticed the people that get the most negative coming to their lives are the complainers? Woe is me. Woe is me. Oh my God, let me tell you about my week. And all they're doing is, they're self-talking, which is additional programming. They're just building that negative SIG. They're building the negative filters for their gateways to bias their future. They are a self-fulfilling prophet. That's the law of attraction side. And if you want to reduce it to metaphysics and quantum physics and vibrational rates, and I saw a video the other day, kind of a cute video, a guy explaining law of attraction, but he was getting into the even diagrams of little molecules bouncing around, with different frequencies, AM radio, FM radio. And it's kind of a nice abstract way of talking about law of attraction. But there's no real explanation of, well, where's the volume switch on that? Where's the tuner on that? So for a layperson to get into law of attraction, I don't like talking about vibrational rates. I like talking about simple things like if you let garbage in, you're going to get more garbage. It's just that simple. And so you have to overcome that. You at least want to balance it. And that's your journey with self-growth, self-development. You at least want to balance it. And if you're going to really succeed, you have to get ahead. You have to have much more positive than negative. So your crew is bringing you more positive and filtering out the negative. So you can't disassociate law of attraction without talking about your sensory information gateways. They are hooked at the hips. And that's what bothers me about a lot of law of attraction. All these, I'm a certified law of attraction specialist. And it's like, oh, okay. Tell me about RAS. What's that? And I'm like, okay, forget it. Don't give me the Oz, guy behind the curtain definition of law of attraction and say, well, if you want good in your life, you have to improve your vibrational rate. Oh, my Lord. Of course, ego's tied into that too, because ego will take you off and direct you in areas which will then affect things. And that's where my frustration was last night with that one trader, was I understand what's going on in their head and I understand what they're doing. It's not serving them well because they're being a little bit of a maverick. What happens when you do that? You get into spiral, and that spiral fosters that desire to be desire the right word. It leads you down a path where you want to be more and more of a maverick. Your crew serves that purpose. But then you make decisions, you make assumptions, you make conclusions based on what you've allowed to be filtered in and filtered out, and you make conclusions which then you project into the future. And so it's a mess. And, if I were to, somebody asked last night, what's your favorite part of Goalmaker? If somebody asked me it's not so much my favorite part, but it is because of how it works. But that little yellow triangle or triad, or however you want to view it, that is the most important part of trading right there. That's the holy grail. Once you understand what's going on there, your trading kind of takes a different path. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of those that watch The Secret and then you get into things that, add a little complexity to it. And I may adjust this at some point. I just don't know where I want to stick it in. But while all that is a reality, the missing link, if you will, between understanding that and then massive success is self-belief, deservedness. Because you could be playing the game as perfectly as you want, but if you don't believe you deserve success, you're still going to stumble all over the place. You're going to destroy the reality of what goes on here. But understanding this is very important. So how, why do I bring this triad up, when I start talking about tidbits? Because you've got to watch your mental game. You've got to watch your self-talk. Okay? There's realities where somebody will take a trade and they had built up to a certain level of expectation. There's all this stuff going on. So let me tell you, when you get this sense, you're moving outside of this triad. Well, you can never move outside of it, but you're going to spin it in the wrong direction. You're going to be spinning down because of it instead of spinning up. When you get this sense of frustration, when you get a sense of expectation, see, a lot of expectation comes from desperation. And when a trade, or a price move more so, doesn't do what you thought it should do, oh wow. And then you make conclusions. There was a post earlier, and he's not in this group, so, and I'm not going to mention his name, but some of you might have saw it. It was a pitchfork on Bitcoin, and he had taken what he assumed from some of his learning. He made conclusions, and the missing item there was he never said, this is what I set up. What do you guys think? See, a lot of the process you guys went through way back when we were just starting pitchforks. Remember, it was all about the setups. I told you, don't trade it. That's because you didn't know enough yet. You had little bits of concepts, and you were taking that one little tidbit of it and applying it and thinking, oh, I've got the whole answer here. And you had 1% of that tidbit. You can't then take a trade with 1% of a tidbit and then be disappointed with your expectations not being met. Now, I know some people, because again, it's the law of numbers. Some people think I'm just really being defensive of trading, and oh, he's not being real because losses do occur, blah blah blah. No, don't go that direction. So what happened in this post was he was talking about, oh, I went through the pitchfork class, and I think it was his first fork. Some of you, I don't know, somebody might correct me on that, but I think it was his first fork that he posted, and he was talking about energy points, and then price ran right through that energy point, and he mistaken in his mind, in his learning process, he mistook. He was mistaken. Mistook, again, I'm not the grammarist here. Grammarist? I better quit while I'm ahead. He made a mistake in assuming that just because two lines intersected, that's an energy point. And so, it was a little bit of, oh, woe is me. And there's no way, and again, this isn't from a point of arrogance, it's just years. There's no way you guys can draw the conclusions that some of you draw sometimes. That's ego. And so what I'm talking about here with his energy points is I'm just going to, it serves my point about this triad, but I also don't want to dismiss the technical stuff. Now, the mistake was he thought that was an energy point. And some of you are thinking, well, Steve, that's what you taught us an energy point is. When you have price that does this, or better yet, I'm going to sharpen my pen because I'm going to try and do both of these at once. And it's coming up to this red box. That's most likely not an energy point that's going to do anything. It's not the fact that you have two lines crossing. It's you have two lines crossing where price has interacted with them, and those two lines independently have been recognizing price, or price has been reacting to those two lines independent. In other words, I'll go with white now. I get a little thinner. Price came up and it bounced off that line. Maybe it went up and passed it, came back and bounced off of it again, and then it comes down and it bounced off the blue line. And then you'll see this kind of thing happen many times. Well, now that is an energy point. It's two separate price lines that have been interacting with price. Now, independent of that, there's one other situation that can have that be an energy point. When you have, in this case, let's say your blue pitchfork line, and this is what he was trying to do, and, you know, in his case, he drew a fork fibbo to create the energy line. You can have a situation where, with the full extent of your pitchfork, not just any old pitchfork, but a pitchfork where price, I'm going to run out of room, where price's activity in that fork were all bound by that upper parallel. In other words, price got up here at some point. Whoops. Price got up here at some point, and there was just so much upward pressure, it was never getting back down. And now when price comes up to that point, that is an energy point. Not only is it a pitchfork bounce, but it's a pitchfork bounce at an energy point. That would be a good interpretation of what an energy point is. But when price doesn't honor this, or price was all over inside this pitchfork, and it leaves it, and then it's violating that line that it's supposed to be, you know, that's not an energy point. The green line here is not an energy point. The white line would respect it as an energy point. Does that make sense? Are we okay with that? So now here's the problem with that. If you don't understand that, if your ego says, I've got this, I saw that module on energy points, I know what an energy point is, even though you don't, you think you do. And our process says, don't make assumptions. If you have a pitchfork and you think you have energy points, let's ensure it, post it, and then ask, based on the understanding I have, is this an energy point or not? See, you're in question asking mode. Go all the way back to why is Noah St. John spot on with affirmations versus the standard affirmation? The mind responds. The mind works harder to answer questions rather than you making a statement to yourself. So if you want to get ahead, this is the whole process that we use, guys. I'm trying to create the Stargate for you. This is why we go through this process. This is why early on, even though you thought you knew what a pitchfork was, I didn't want people trading them, even in demo. It's demo. Why is it going to hurt? Because you make conclusions. That's why. If you don't got, If you don't have this learning process down, you will make false conclusions. And those false conclusions then will cloud your sense of what's going on with your learning. This just isn't working out. Yeah, this pitchfork stuff, I don't know. And how did you get to that point? Because you saw some training, you drew something, you didn't have the right understanding, and it's not being derogatory. It's hard for anything to be learned the first time. You didn't have the full understanding. You draw something, it doesn't do what you expected it to do because you didn't understand what it was supposed to do to begin with, and then you make a negative conclusion about it, and next thing you know, you're off chasing some other system. That's how that triad was at effect in every moment of that. At every moment of that along that journey, that triad was at play. Don't allow your ego to get in there. And yes, I want you posting, but watch your attitude when you post. It's not, hey world, look at me, I got this mastered, I'm going places, la da da. No. Get your embarrassed factor out of the way. Don't be afraid to get your courage up, post your trade, or your setup or whatever, but always come at it from a learning mode perspective. I'll tell you when you're ready. I'll tell you when you have the head game because I'll know it. I'll see it. You'll be vibrating at the right frequency. And I just have enough years that my tuner will know that. Until then, you're learning. Until you get through the funnel, until we get the stuff that you need to know that doesn't work. So there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I went through the pitchfork course, but you don't then declare this an energy point and then it doesn't work and then it's like, oh my God, can I trust energy points anymore? Because here it is, first time I'm showing it doesn't work. Again, people like to be exception hunters too. That's another psychological mindset. And we'll get through that a little bit more in the future. But it should always be from a learning perspective. Hey, I went through the pitchfork course. This is my first fork. People need to compliment the post. Congratulations on posting. But then you don't want to make conclusions. You want to say, hey, this is my rough understanding of what an energy point is. Am I on course? Am I off course? I'm on track, off track. But when you make your own conclusions, you're sealing your fate in there because you don't have that triad mastered. You don't understand sometimes when your ego's at play yet. You will. You'll get there. You'll know when your ego's at play. Because we're going to continue to define it enough, just like I talked about with certain sensations. You'll get to a point where you go, oh, this must be a warning flag that ego's around because Steve told me this is how I was going to feel, and I'm feeling that. So ego must be at play. I'm just not, I need to be aware of it. And you'll slowly start to feel when ego is and isn't at play. You'll be able to have that self-awareness and that separation. And now you go through the Stargate. Now, the biggest roadblock to all of this is what? What's the biggest roadblock to the learning process as a Forex trader? What do you guys think is the biggest roadblock? Now, nobody can see anything. I'm the only one that sees, and I don't judge. I just want to see where people are, where they're thinking. What do you think is the biggest roadblock to moving, somewhat properly within the framework of this? What's the biggest roadblock to this learning process? Yeah, y'all are nailing it. That's some of it. The biggest impediment is you've built expectations up front and those expectations aren't being met. And then you're making conclusions from that for which it affects your mood and your attitude. You've made conclusions that your progress as a trader is too slow. Because why? Because you came into this thinking, oh, in 60 days, I told my wife in 60 days I'd be making job level income. And, where did that come from? Who told you could do that? Where'd you get the math for that? And so you're impatient. And then when you're impatient, you're going to lack discipline. When you're impatient, you lack discipline, you're going to be making trades and doing stuff and then making conclusions based on it, because that conclusions are just going to come along and convince you even more and frustrate you even more, which just gets in its own little spiral of getting you to do more wrong things because you're not satisfied with the speed things are going. So you try and speed them up. And ego, big part of it, and discipline, and belief set, and deservedness. It's all in the head. All right, I think I made my point on that. Let me talk about getting your SIG on a little. Because, again, by observation, some of you are not understanding it. You get the concept of sensory information gateway, but how you implement it or interact with it is another. And that's pretty simple. It's just a simple misunderstanding. It's a lack of, in that understanding of the sensory information gateways, it's a lack of understanding in the placement of various things. And when you have the placement wrong, then we're in trouble. I'm going to write INS over here because I want a little bit of room. So here we learn what sensory information. We learn what sensory information gateways are. And there's two paths. One is the correct path, and then there's one that some of you are just trying to, on an impromptu basis, create because what you thought you learned isn't the way it is. I.e., oh, wait a second. This is like the energy point. Oh, yeah, I know what an energy point is. Your definition is two lines crossing versus two lines crossing that have previously showed they're being respected by the price. You'll see that a lot with two pitchforks. You'll see that a lot with two pitchforks, especially with outer boundaries when they finally come together. So you think you learn SIG. So let's talk about those two paths. Here's the paths many of you are taking. And I say this because some of you have said things like, when I announced my holiday schedule, all over the place, not just this group, but, members of this group, but in the Scans, Forks, and Fibos group at large, there are comments like, oh, it'll be a good time to work on my RAS. Now, there's an element of truth to that, in that we've talked about programming. But there's two elements to programming your RAS, and this, your sensory information gateway. So here's our RAS. Here's our SIG. Warned you guys to help me with that. Here's our sensory information gateways. And we talked about proactive programming. That's what self-development efforts, self-growth efforts are. And so on things like, believability, in the big picture. And things like, getting my orientation and not be negative, to be positive, so my RAS brings me more positive. Yes, you could go work on that during the Christmas holidays. But you're mistaken in terms of the learning process, in terms of trading, in terms of posting trades, in terms of your exploratory work in your demo account. Callie, I don't have room for you today up here now, right now. Come on. Ow, ow, ow. Ah, there you go. Your SIG, your sensory information gateways, get programmed after the fact. Or even as a reality during. And then you need to validate that that was correct. So what I mean by that is an example of a negative SIG programming would be taking 3 trades and getting -3s on them, and then remember the triad, a little law of attraction helping program your SIG, for which your SIG will then perpetuate that law of attraction. I always get stopped out. I never can get 2 winning trades in a row. That negative programming comes from trading. Developing a positive SIG is no different. It comes from trading. It comes from, I've taken trades, I've posted them. Steve and the coaches and the other group members who are attentive and see something point out mistakes, and I learn from it. So therefore, in the future, your SIG will start to screen, and that's why a volume of that is necessary. Your SIG is a result of the positive influence in your trading. And so the mistake that's happening here is you want to be a better trader, and you think the path to that is I need to work on my SIG, because when I do, I become a better trader. And that's true. It's just you're missing the element of the evolution, the working of your SIG on a positive level comes from volumes of trades. You cannot build a positive SIG on the trading side by studying, by reading, by looking at your notes. That'll have minor impact. Your real positive SIG comes from the process that we use, which is why we use that process. Remember at the very beginning, I said, this is how we work. There's a funnel. Well, I'm not going to draw a funnel with a rectangle tool. There's a funnel. And the way we operate with our learning process is you post trades, and you post trades, and you post trades, and you post trades, and you post trades. And what the funnel represents as we move forward on the x-axis with time, we come along, the coaches, me, the group. Hey, Billy Bob, don't do that anymore. It's not going to work. Hey, Billy Bob, don't do that. Hey, Billy Bob, don't do that. Sally Sue, don't do this. Billy Bob sees us tell Sally Sue, don't do this. It kind of gets recorded a little, and these are all things not to do. And eventually we get down here to this point where you're submitting post after post after post, and there's just nothing left to comment on because you've realized, you've learned through what? This time. You've learned what not to do. You can't forget this, guys. Don't come in here and think you can learn how to trade. You will fail. You have to learn how not to trade. And then the default, what's left after that will be knowing how to trade. Do you recognize the difference between those two? So you can't take Christmas break when I talk about, well, it's going to slow down because we're not going to be here and blah, 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 and family and blah, blah, blah. And you can't say, well, I'm going to go work on my SIG so I could be a better trader. That's just not possible. It's not how it happens. Your SIG gets better because of your trading and because of your participation in the process. Are we clear? Yeah, you have to do some reading. Don't. I'm not saying that you can't impact your SIG and that whole triad. You want to put positive into it. You want to have belief, enlarged by your reading and your self-development work. But where the understanding of SIG is wrong is when I see somebody like, yeah, I took 7 trades this week, or I didn't take any trades this week because of the market the way I saw it. I'm using selectivity. Oh, that's a whole nother side. And I'm going to go work on my RAS this weekend. No, you can't. That's not how it works. First of all, why are you upset? Why are you frustrated that you had 7 losing trades? Whose expectation are you working on? You're just a student. You're in learning mode. If you're not supposed to be evaluating your trades at this point, why are you evaluating the trades at this point? It's about positively accepting and discovering the things that you're doing wrong. I'm not going to name names, but we've got a couple people in the Scans, Forks, and Fibos group who love to comment philosophically, technically, etc. They haven't posted a single trade. But they're coming at us like they've got this almighty wisdom. I'm not going to name names. Some of you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, Zoe. Yes, knowing what not to do will do it right. You can't go out and achieve success. It doesn't happen. You have to fail. Now, it might not be visible to the public, but you've got to fail. Because it's too much luck. The last thing you want is to start your trading, demo trading, and everything go your way. Because that's luck, that's not skill. Everything goes your way feeds your ego. This is why people get burnt out, because all of a sudden, they had a few lucky hits and they think they're a master trader in 2 weeks. And so now their ego is all about, oh, you're the greatest. You can leave this stop open. Oh, okay, you're 80% drawn down. No problem. You've got this. You don't learn what to do. You do learn what to do, but then when you try it, you have to fail and learn what doesn't work about what it is you're supposed to know how to do. You have to fail, guys. It's the learning process. Then you go through the Stargate. And that learning process takes what? Volumes of trades. Because you have to learn what not to do in every instance. You have to learn every instance of what is not an energy point so you eventually know what an energy point is. And then you have to be accepting of that discovery process. You have to be accepting of that journey. You can't put that 60-day time frame on that journey. It has nothing to do with the calendar. And it's not just a volume of trades, it's a volume of trades in this process to where you can give your, gateways a chance to be programmed. I'm I'm not sure how to take that, Richard. You've got the process, the triad and the process, and there you go. So you can't, from a trading sense, you can't go home this weekend and work on your RIS or your SIG. It's a cumulative result. It's not something you can attack proactively. If you want to develop your SIG the fastest, review the triad, review the process, meditate, say some mantras every day, say some affirmations. Why do I follow the learning process for learning how to trade so faithfully? Why do I trust that I'm going to learn how to trade by learning how not to trade? Throw your affirmations on there, a la Noah St. John. That's how you could work on your SIG this weekend. Try and create some affirmations that support the learning process, that support the development of your understanding of that triad. See, I told you early on, when I get to know you, and that's why I didn't want the group to get too big too fast. I wanted it to be a small group. I want to get to know you, and I'll know you through your trading. I'll know you through your posts. Oh, I don't mean anything evil about that or, CD or anything. I mean, I'll know you to the point that I can help you understand where you need to put some emphasis. Sometimes that's the mental game. Sometimes it is the technical game that drives the mental game. Sometimes it's both. But I could see ego. I could see stubbornness. I could see maverick. I could see openness to fail because every kind of trade is posted. There's no way traders that are, and again, I'm speaking on an average, this new to the market can only have positive trades. That just doesn't happen. So with a smaller group, I note, this guy's always posting just positive trades. So there's an ego issue going on because he's afraid to post the negative trades as if he's being evaluated to the negative. That's the ego trying to protect him. We can see that. I can see it. Some of you can see it. So now I know I need to go to that guy and say, hey, dude, you're missing out here. You're not getting brownie points for getting trades right. It's almost the opposite. You're just raising flags showing us you're making mistakes, but you'd rather let your ego convince you want to protect yourself than you want to become a successful trader, because successful traders want to eliminate their mistakes. They want to expose themselves. They want to get those mistakes out there so they can be corrected. Oh, it's okay, Richard. I kind of understood what you meant. All right. Any questions about any of that? We on the same page? Now, some of you, um, my Pip Club traders in particular, because we focused on this, but some of you get some of this concept, and some of you are able to understand that your SIG at the time of the trade is modified based on the emotion of and the panic and the overwhelming volume of it. See, when you're in a trade and that emotion floods in, what if this and what if that and what if I did? That's your sensory information gateway sharing the fact it's being overflooded. It doesn't have the ability to deal. The filters aren't quite set, and that's why you feel that sense of panic, especially when you get to live money. That's what the panic is caused by. Is your SIG doesn't have all the information it needs. It kind of knows it needs it, and it just doesn't have the filters to work with, and there's too much information coming at it, and so it panics. But some of you have the ability to realize that because you'll take a trade, you have the courage to post it, and when you go back and look at the trade, you go, why the hell did I ever take that trade? No, I wouldn't take that same trade again. So when you get to that point, when you kind of see, now don't become the selfish coach or the independent coach or the isolated coach, because you're not ready to fully engage all of your trades and to evaluate them. But you're leaning in the right direction when you can look at a trade and then in the calm of the moment, because the trade's over, the emotion and the SIG being overwhelmed, that's all calmed down. And you look back at it, now things are visible that you just couldn't see because your SIG was panicked. And now with the calmness of the moment, you can see it and you, oh my God, what was I thinking? Right? Anybody ever experienced that? And that just shows you how easy it is for your sensory information gateways to get flooded without the right filters in place, because they get overwhelmed. They don't know how to parse the information. That's how they communicate to you, by giving you that queasy feeling of panic. But you kind of self-perpetuate that if you're not careful. So you want to accept that panic. You want to see that as one of those things. Oh, Steve said I would feel this way if my gateways weren't programmed well enough yet. Where does that programming come? Volume of trades that get corrected. And that gets tuned better and better and better. So, we've got people who won't post a single trade. Well, I'm almost at a point of posting a policy or, in that pinned post, a term and condition. You're not allowed to comment on a trade unless you post trades. And I'm really kind of fed up with these people who think they're experts and all they're driven is by their ego. If you can't post at least 10 trades a month, you're not allowed to post. The trouble with all that is, how do you admin that over 5,000 people, or even the 1,200 that somehow are very active? Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, is it does muddy the waters. You're right, Phil. It muddies the waters sometimes, because how do you know that the person knows what they know in order to comment, or, is it just their ego talking? I've seen a lot. I have said, don't guess, don't comment just for the sake of satisfying your ego, because a lot of guessing takes place. And then you have group dynamics at work, which only, makes things much worse. But guys, get the understanding here of the part of your SIG that you can proactively work on. You can proactively not be around negative people. And you have to draw a line in the sand. And sometimes you will lose friends. And sometimes you have to be very demonstrative with family members. You know, go to mom's for Sunday dinner and, oh, you're still doing that Forex thing. You need to put your fist on the table and look her in the eyes and say, Mom, I'm going to do this. And if you're going to talk negatively about it, as much as I love you, I'm going to leave the house when you do. And then the first time she forgets and she starts talking negatively about your Forex efforts, you say, Mom, I love you, but I warned you, I can't have this because you are hurting my efforts. And you have to leave. Trust me, moms get that really fast. They want you around. They'll change their attitude, at least in your presence. You might walk out the door and they'll go, oh, that stupid daughter of mine or that stupid son of mine. That's fine. You're not hearing it. So you can proactively programming your SIG by avoiding negative. You can, in addition to that, put positive into your SIG, not just the elimination of the negative. You put positive into SIG through self-development efforts. But that's the kind of mental, emotional, psychological side of SIG. The raw filter in, filter out comes from trading. The removal of the panic in the heat of the moment comes from volumes of trades and our learning process. Learning what not to do, the funnel. You know, the internet is full of funnels. It's kind of the, what's in 2017. Russell Branson, whatever his name is, and click funnels, and everybody's got their little marketing system with funnels. You got to mention the word if you're going to be hip, in 2017. Well, we have our own funnel. And like in the online marketing world, if you don't understand funnels, you're not going to get very far. If you don't understand in the new paradigm, this training funnel, you're not going to get very far. You have to honor that funnel. You have to understand what is happening there, and then you have to ensure that's happening in your demo trading, in your learning process. You want to wake up every day with a smile on your face. Come on, Steve, beat me up some today. Because that demonstrates your acceptance of the learning process. You're accepting, your ego accepts the fact that you don't already know it all. I get the concept of I'm going to go through the pitchfork course 3 times over the holidays. I kind of get that. But see, the problem is you got to be careful with that, because are you coming from the concept of I'm going to learn how to draw pitchforks? It's okay to go through it 3 times. What's better is to go through it and go post 20 pitchforks. Then review it again and then go post another 20 pitchforks. You can't compress learning how to do something by studying it. You'll get an academic understanding. That's not going to take away the panic in the heat of the moment. Your SIG is going to be so flooded when you try and draw it in real time. I'm going to go work on my SIG over the holidays so I can hit 2018 right. No. Yeah, get to the mental side, get to the psychological side. I agree. Yeah. But that's not how you all are referring to it. You all think the SIG comes before you trade. And if you improve your SIG, then I'll get my 2018. I'll be a great trader in 2018. But the way you get your SIG on is through volumes of trades. then your filtering mechanism is right, and then you become the better trader. You just can't go and improve your trading SIG by watching videos. That's the bottom line. No. See, okay. I'm going to have to postpone INS because I do want to finish. I got to get out of here in 10 minutes. So I want to address a question that came up that's very important. It could be a 2-hour session on its own. Selectivity, you got to be careful with that. That's what you want to learn how to be selective as a live trader. In the learning mode, you don't want to be selective. I mean, don't consciously take a trade that is what we've taught not to do. You're aware not to do it, and you're taking the trade. Selectivity comes down to that last 90%. It's meeting the criteria, but within the criteria, there are better trades than others. And there's nobody here yet that has that level of understanding of the market, of our systems, and gosh, we haven't even gotten started with them. There's nobody that has that level of understanding to where they're at the 90% level. And so you want to take trades that look somewhat close to being a trade. Don't try and be the guy that gets it right because you won't go through the funnel. The example I start off with, and I'll end with this, little Johnny trying to learn baseball. See, you're playing many of the characters here when I use the little Johnny example. Stickball, baseball, whatever it is, your country, your culture. So you take little Johnny out back. Here in the States, we come from a baseball perspective. 3 swings and it's 3 swing and misses. Those are strikes. 3 strikes, you're out. So I'm going to take little Johnny out back. If I say to him, okay, when we're done, we're going to go inside. I'm going to tell Mommy how many times you swung and missed. What that does then, his focus is on winning. That means he's going to be real shy about taking a swing at things that might be okay hits, but he's afraid to test and explore. Because if he misses, Mommy's going to heard that he swung and missed again. So he's, by trying to make him selective, when he doesn't know how to do it to begin with, you're just looking for a disaster. And in this case, you're playing both little Johnny and Mommy who evaluates you at the same time. You're both one and the same. On the other hand, if I take little Johnny out back and I say, okay, I don't care if you miss. When we go inside, I'm going to tell Mommy how many times you hit the ball. Little Johnny's going to swing at anything. He's going to discover through his process of eliminating what doesn't work, he's going to learn the muscle memory of what does work. Oh, the ball's got to be around this high, this range, this wide. And when it's in there, I stand a decent chance of hitting it. He learns that. You don't go out and do it. And then you have the mental condition. If you're trying to be selective, you're never going to learn and explore. If you feel you're not punished for making a swing and a miss, then you'll swing more. And just like the funnel, at some point over time, in realizing I swung at that last time and I missed, and I swung at that last time and I missed, and I swung at that last time and I missed, it's probably not a good place to swing and try and hit the ball. It's the same funnel. You'll learn by getting it wrong. I was a youth league at many different levels, a basketball and football coach. Oh my God, the parents, your average parent doesn't get this, especially the dads, and if the dads played sports, they just expect their kid to go out and perform as the dad did, his senior year in high school after he had Little League, baseball and middle school baseball and 4 years in high school baseball, and he expects his little kid to go out there and bat, 425 like the dad did his senior year. That pressure to get it right will never have, and the kid fails and the dad gets even more frustrated. Why can't you be like me? Why can't, And it's like, well, Dad, you're forgetting you learned how not to do things. You don't learn by going out and doing it. You'll fail. So don't forget that. And the other thing, and the reason why you don't want to be selective is the whole example I just gave with the dude in the pitchfork and the energy points. A lot of what you think is screening out criteria is wrong. You've made conclusions that are wrong. And then you're trying to apply it against trades. Your trade selectivity will be a natural result of you going through the learning process of learning what not to do. You guys are not ready to demo trade as if they're live accounts. Yes, we'll talk trade selectivity, trying to build the concept of what you're going to do once you're live trading. But how can you be a trader, in a trade station tracking results at the same time you're a student? Let me ask an honest question. And just say yes or no to this question. Everybody ready? Would you be comfortable leaving the passenger area at a gate at an airport, walking through that tunnel, getting to the plane, having the flight attendants greet you, and they're the pilots kind of hanging out the door of the cockpit, and you look at them both, and, John Doe, student pilot, and, Billy Bob, student co-pilot. Well, that's what you're trying to do. If you allow your mind to be influenced by your demo trades, you just walked on that plane. You're not ready to trade with the information you've learned yet. You've concluded that you've mastered this stuff and therefore you can be selective. You'll learn selectivity and you guys are going to learn it at different rates. You're going to, and that's the downside of group dynamics. Somebody's going to post something and they've gotten to a level of selectivity on a particular item that you haven't got to yet. You're going to go, what are they doing? Why did they say they realized they didn't want to take that trade? It looks perfectly fine to me. Not everybody's at the same level. Not everybody's at the same rate. Give yourself some slack. Don't be so hard on yourself. But you're not ready to be a student pilot and a student co-pilot and a student chief engineer, flight engineer. You're not ready to do that and carry 367 passengers, which is what you're doing when you're trying to be selective as a student trader. Follow the process. Now, don't let my passion and my personality hold you back. If you don't understand what we're talking about in this learning process, then you need to voice it so I can help you understand better. I mean, you don't want to get in that point where, you know, your selectivity is so strong that you don't take any trades and then you get frustrated because you didn't take any trades this week. So the question I have is, with that week, what did you learn this week? See, in the end, it was a wasted week or a wasted 3 days or a wasted 2 weeks, whatever time period you're referencing. It was wasted. Because what did you learn? You learned from taking the trades and your mistakes being pointed out. And a mistake is the wrong word. Your full lack of understanding fully what that particular, thing was. And then that's the ego mechanism. I've got this, and then it doesn't work, and, time to jump systems. Trading is learning to trade is a university level degree and beyond. Probably much harder. It shouldn't take you 4 years, but it's the process is the same. It's build, 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 build. The difference here is you get feedback along the way. It's not just a test. You don't, see, that's the problem with the education system is go study, go study, go study. Here's the test. It's kind of like me, if I were to give you all the videos for this group, live sessions, recorded sessions, stuff from the past, I were to give you a package of 100 videos and then say, okay, here's a $100,000 account. You get to trade this week. That's the university process. That's our educational system, for the most part. There's places that follow what we do very strongly. I went to the Naval Academy. We didn't do it quite as extensively as Coast Guard and Merchant Marine. The Coast Guard Academy, the Merchant Marine Academy, they have some level of education, but they go out to sea for quite a while, and then they come back and get more education. They get to at least apply some of what they've learned instead of going through getting your degree and then putting you out, in the real world. That's the process. Learn and do, and then you learn from the mistakes you made when you were out there doing it. So this is a proven learning mechanism. It's a different modality than the way the rest of the Forex is taught, because the rest of the Forex is about, the rest of the Forex education is about making money. They really can care less if you learn how to trade. They'll just continue to do their emotional appeal until the market is oversaturated, and then they'll move on to something else. Hey, binary options. I'm not attacking IML, but I'm just saying in general, when a marketer can't get any more money out of the Forex, it's binary options. And then, a year or two of that, like, cryptocurrency, and he's selling the same course. He just went to his word processor. He went to Word and globally find and replace Forex with cryptocurrency. And here's his new cryptocurrency course. They just move on. And the funny thing is I've seen some of those students follow the same people through the various markets over the last 10, 12 years. They never made it in Forex, but they're going to go to binary. And you have to laugh because, gee, I couldn't get the market that had one thing, which was price. Now I'm going to go, I failed at that. Now I'm going to go to a market that has both price and time. But I'm going to succeed there. See, that's marketing emotional. They got to them. And well, oh my gosh, you got to be buying Bitcoin because, look at what it's done. Yeah, it's what it's done for the guy that got in at 10 cents or $1. You're not going to buy in at 16,000 and have the same results over the next 18 months. It's not going to happen. I know a lot of Bitcoiners, Bitcoin people think it's going to happen. But the people that buy in at 16 are probably going to experience a drop to 13 or 10 before it ever gets to 20. So learn the process, learn that triad, ask questions about it. Post a trade. This is what happened in this trade. Was my triad of, the head stuff missing something, or what can I program into my triad based on this learning experience? But oh my gosh, I see too much emotion over your trades. I say, when a trader says, "Oh, it didn't do what I expected it to do." Oh my gosh, I didn't realize we had the Forex God of God in our midst. After 60 days. Whew, man, smoking. You're it. Didn't meet your expectations. And most of the time, as I said, those expectations are falsely set. That is not an energy point. Price was not honoring either of those points. It wasn't even honoring the pitchfork to where you had a fibbo across it that you could count on it. You can't call something a superset of support and resistance if it just wasn't even performing as support and resistance until it got to the superset. I mean, flawed logic, right? Yeah, you got people pushing, the crypto stuff. Look, I don't have I'm slowly indoctrinating myself, into the technicals of the stuff. But 99% of the people out there are in it at a level of marketing. The real players, the guys that bought in at $1 in a speculative way and bought 1,000 Bitcoin 4 years ago, they don't need to be talking about it. The real traders don't boast. The real traders aren't going to post screenshots of their trading stations or their bank accounts or whatever. They don't need to say that's all ego. That's all compensation because I'm not achieving something somewhere. I've got to get it somewhere else. And so the attention getters, the super trade, it's like, oh wow, there's the first trade I've seen you post in 2 weeks, and you gained 200% on it. Let me see the ones you lost everything. See, it's a compensation mechanism. But, and I'm not, Bitcoin will be serviceable as a service. It'll, IML, Chris has the right vision on how to approach Bitcoin and crypto. Learn it, offer training, have trading products, and you'll be able to participate in crypto just like you can participate in the Forex with different kinds of offerings from auto-traded to you learn how to self-trade. But it's a fool's market right now because it's just on a bull run. And because somebody went from 1,000 to 16,000, in 6 months, doesn't mean the market from 16,000 is going to grow at the same rate. There will be a correction. It's just part of reality. And look, when I first started learning to trade, there was a bull run like this on the Euro USD. Which why a lot of those traders that were succeeding then you don't see right now, because all they did was jump on a blue candle and buy. And you didn't even have to have a stop loss because the retracements were so shallow, and all it was going to do is continue to go up. And it did. Go look back, if you can get data historically far enough, go look back at the Deutschmark, which transitioned into the Euro USD. Go look at that. And then when it became the Euro USD, there was a multiple year run that it just went straight up. That's not learning to trade. It is exploiting a certain market condition, but you're not a trader. When that market condition evaporated, those people didn't know how to trade. And that's all that's happening right now with Bitcoin. And people are going to make you think, oh, wow, look at how it's going. Oh, here's the absolute percentages. And we have a course to show you how to trade. And you're correlating the two. You're correlating the gains that are being made right now with, if I take that course, I'll learn how to profit from that. And there will be a correction. There'll be a massive sell-off at some point. Something's going to happen. It always does. And then, as I wrote the other day, people have a false sense of security about it. Oh, it can't be traced. Well, the Bitcoin itself might not be, but you're traced. Trust me. All right. So we did cover a lot today, even though it wasn't the full agenda of what I had intended, but I think the deviation was important in the fact that we've got this recorded will allow you to watch this, so you can review this one. This is all about saying, for the most part, if you have negative feelings, you have overwhelming feelings, if you have disappointment based on your expectations, that's all perfectly normal, and it's okay, and you're not off track. Yeah, it's late for you, Australians. All right, I'm going to shut it down. I'll see you Thursday night. Have a good couple of days, guys. Love you.